When we say gestational age, we mean the time between the mother's last menstrual period and the time that the baby was born. And so a baby who was born at 25 weeks was born 25 weeks after the mother's first day of her last menstrual period. And then we continue to use that phrase throughout a baby's hospital course. So a baby who was 25 weeks at birth, who now is 2 weeks old, we call that baby 27 weeks, corrected gestational age. And this is important because it helps us understand what milestones a baby may achieve. Babies that are at the earliest gestational ages, so 23 to 25 or 26 weeks, have typically the largest challenges in our NICU. They tend to need a fair amount of respiratory support. Babies who are less than 35 weeks typically need feeds through a tube that goes either in their nose or in their mouth and then into their stomach. They're at risk of infections and they're at risk of multiple other complications. And so their courses tend to be the longest. Many of these infants at this gestational age do survive and go home, and many of them do well. When you get into the more moderate premature infant phase, the 28 to 32 week infants often have fewer challenges than the earlier infants, but still can have many issues related to their prematurity, including some respiratory immaturity and difficulty with feeding. The later preterm infants, so getting closer to 32, 34, 35 weeks, have issues related to their immaturity, feeding immaturity. Their courses in our NICU tend to be a little bit shorter, but many of these infants have challenges that make it so that they cannot go home with their mothers. These would be not being able to feed everything by mouth, so still needing the feeding tube, not being able to maintain their own temperature, so needing to be in an isolate or an incubator to maintain their own temperature, and not being able to remember to breathe. At 35 weeks, a baby is typically ready to learn how to eat by mouth. We preferentially give babies their mother's breast milk, so mothers often pump their breast milk for their babies. We store it and then we feed it via tube. And then babies also need typically some formula or some other additional nutrition added to the breast milk to help them grow optimally in their premature infant phase. Another milestone is at 40 weeks, infants are typically getting close to being ready to go home. A very normal time for a baby to go home from our NICU would be a few weeks before or a few weeks after their due date.